So we have established that the Scriptures clearly teach both the deity and humanity of Jesus. This leads us to a crucial and perplexing question. How could Jesus be both God and man at the same time? Isn't this some sort of contradiction? The Church wrestled with this very question for the first 500 years of its existence. This discussion was closely related to the historic debates about the Trinity, which we covered in last week's lesson. Was Jesus really part of the Trinity? And if so, how could he also be a human being? Numerous solutions were proposed during this time. People tended to gravitate towards one extreme or the other. On one side, there were those who emphasized the humanity of Jesus. To these people, Jesus was fully human, but not quite fully God. Arianism was perhaps the most notable of these teachings. It claimed that Jesus was created by God right before the creation of the heavens and the earth. Thus, Jesus was not an eternal being, not fully God. Ebionitism was a Jewish sect that regarded Jesus as nothing more than a human Messiah. He was the son of David and rightful heir to the throne of Israel, but not God. Subordinationism was a doctrine that taught that Jesus is inferior to God the Father. He was not equally God. Finally, adoptionism taught that Jesus began his life as just another human being and was later adopted by God to be his son. On the other hand, there were just as many heretical teachings that emphasized the deity of Jesus at the expense of his humanity. Docetism taught that Jesus only appeared to be a human being. His human body was not real, just a form that God assumed. Gnosticism was a related teaching that emphasized the spiritual realm over the physical world, so it too taught that Jesus was merely a spirit in human form. Apollinarianism taught that Jesus' human body was real, but that his mind was divine. Finally, Monothelitism taught that Jesus lacked a human will. Everything else about him was human, but his will was divine. A third view that attempted to strike a balance between these extremes was known as Eutychianism, or Monophysitism. This thought taught that Jesus' human nature and divine nature mixed together in his person, forming a third, unique nature. Thus, Jesus was neither human nor divine, but something entirely different. The problem was that none of these views was entirely consistent with Scripture. Either Jesus' humanity was rejected or his divinity was rejected, or both were rejected in favor of a third nature. The church convened at the Synod of Chalcedon in 451 AD to address the issue. The theologian Cyril of Alexandria was the champion of this meeting, proposing what he called the Hypostatic Union to describe the relationship between Jesus' human nature and divine nature. Cyril's idea was supported by Pope Leo I, and more importantly, accounted for all the biblical evidence regarding Jesus' person. The Synod agreed to adopt the Hypostatic Union as the formal definition. They wrote the definition of Chalcedon to clarify what is meant by the Hypostatic Union. You can see the primary text of the definition here, with the important aspects being highlighted. Namely, the person of Jesus consists of two separate natures. These natures are united in a way that maintains their distinction. The union of these natures results not in two different persons, but rather one distinct person. Stated a bit more simply, the person of Jesus has two separate natures, undiminished deity and perfect humanity. He is fully God and fully man at the same time. These two natures are united forever in a single person. They do not mingle or distort one another, nor do they cause a split personality or internal conflict. In the words of the definition of Chalcedon, Jesus is in two natures, without confusion, without change, without division, and without separation.